What up, pimps, and welcome to the official Egg Footy Tipping Competition Round 9 predictions. Now, I'm very happy. I'm in a very good mood. This is a proud and historic day for the Egg Footy YouTube channel because last week, finally, I achieved the elusive, the prestigious 9 out of 9 perfect tip.
You did it. Good job. I can't believe it. I'm proud of you.
Now, I felt like such a genius, a next level 200 IQ Superman, supercomputer man, until I realized that literally everybody else in my tipping competition also got 9 out of 9 as well. But I'm still going to take this as a win. Lord knows I need it. I'm going to put my tips up on the screen right now so you can see. Obviously, it doesn't take a detective to figure out what I tipped because I got everything right. Let's have a look at the top 10 now. A little bit of movement. Some people starting to rise up, some people starting to rise down. It's a cracking contest at the top. It's going to be interesting later on in the year to see who stays in the top 10, who drops out, especially when it becomes easier to tip different games. You start to get a better idea of what different clubs are capable of, who's going to be bad, who's going to be good, etc, etc. As for me, I'm still going good. I've rocketed up from 144 all the way up to 107. I think I'll be able to crack the top 100 by next week if my tips go the way I hope they will. And on that note, let's have a look at my round 9 predictions. Starting off, we've got Friday night at the MCG, Richmond taking on Geelong. Now, Geelong is in really good form at the moment. Richmond look like absolute shit. I know they beat West Coast last week, but you know, it is West Coast and they were losing at one point. West Coast were in front, and then eventually they lost one player out with a knee, and then their bench was compromised, and eventually Richmond ran away with it, as they should. And Geelong held off a firing Adelaide Crows last week to hold on in front of their home crowd, and I reckon Geelong will get up by about 35 to 40 points, as do 93% of people on the website. Now, it would be very, very funny if Richmond were to somehow win against Geelong, but for the sake of my tips and for the sake of anybody who has eyes, I think Geelong should be able to get up quite comfortably. Also on Friday night at Optus Stadium, we've got West Coast Eagles taking on the Gold Coast Suns. Now, West Coast, they looked good last week against Richmond before eventually Richmond just ran away with it. And they had another ACL on the weekend as well, which is ridiculous. Like, their injury list is super, super long. They've got Rhett Bazzo coming back from a concussion, hopefully soon. They hopefully have a few people coming back in this week, so hopefully they are a bit more competitive. But yeah, I really don't know what to think about the situation up there. It's crazy. Somebody should really look into it because it's just a pandemic at the moment. That being said, I think Gold Coast looked great against Melbourne last week. They should have won had they had a bit more of a rub of the green and a bit more composure, but you know, they didn't. There's nothing they can do, and given how they performed last week, I think Gold Coast should be able to get up. I know it's Optus Stadium, West Coast home ground, but Gold Coast is starting to look good, and I think they'll go to 4 and 5 this week. Saturday Arvo at the SCG, we've got Sydney taking on Fremantle. Now, Fremantle came off a good win against Hawthorn. Sydney came off not a massive thrashing by any stretch of the imagination, not as humiliating as the Geelong game, not as humiliating as the Giants game, but a loss nonetheless. Despite Fremantle getting a big win last week and despite Sydney losing, I still think Sydney are going to get up against Fremantle. It's a long road trip for Fremantle. Big flight to Sydney from Western Australia, and Sydney looking to rebound, looking to make a statement. People are starting to write them off. I think they're going to come out and really deliver it to Fremantle, and I think they'll get up by about 15 to 20 points. Meanwhile, at Blundstone Arena in Tassie, we've got North Melbourne taking on Port Adelaide. And I think I'm pretty comfortable in predicting Port Adelaide to win against North Melbourne. Their accuracy was absolute arse last week, and for that matter, so was North Melbourne. And I think if they can get on top of that, they should have no problem beating North Melbourne, who looked absolute shit against St Kilda last week. I'll talk more about that game when I talk about St Kilda, but you know, all things considered, Port Adelaide look really, really good at the moment. North Melbourne, you see bits and pieces, but they're not quite there yet, so I think I'm comfortable in tipping Port Adelaide to get up against North Melbourne. Twilight game at the MCG, we've got Hawthorn taking on Melbourne, and Hawthorn at the bottom of the ladder, 1 and 7. Melbourne in the top 4, 6 and 2, I think is pretty obvious. I'm tipping Melbourne to get up against Hawthorn. Again, like the Geelong-Richmond game, it would be really, really funny if Hawthorn managed to win somehow, but I think Melbourne aren't going to let that happen. I think they're too mature for that, and I think Melbourne will get home by about 30 points at least. Anything less than that, I think Melbourne should have cause for concern. They did almost lose to Gold Coast last week, so, you know, anything could happen. Saturday night at the Gabba, we've got my Brisbane Lions taking on Essendon. Now, obviously, I've got to tip my Brisbane Lions no matter what. Even if it costs me another 9 out of 9, I'm still going to back my Lions. And, you know, even despite that, I still think they'll get up. They looked incredible last week against Carlton. One of the better games I've seen under us, not just this year, but under Chris Fagan, for that matter, his whole tenure since 2017. Essendon looked good against Port Adelaide last week, but they did let the lead slip and they did let it get away from them. They should be glad Port Adelaide was so inaccurate, or else it would have been a bigger loss. And so just because of all that, I think I'm pretty comfortable in tipping my Lions regardless of my little rule that I've got going on. Now, this one was very tricky. Carlton and Western Bulldogs at Marvel Stadium. Carlton coming off a bad loss, Western Bulldogs coming off a good win. Both teams are pretty even, I think, in terms of ability and personnel. I couldn't pick a winner, so what I did was I went into the recently not as shit AFL 23 and I decided to put 2 CPU controlled teams against each other and predict the game that way. So here we go, first bounce. Carlton get the first clearance and pretty much immediately they get the first goal to put them up by 6 points, but almost immediately Western Bulldogs responded of their own goal and they tied the game 6-all. Quarter time, Carlton 12-6. Charlie Curnow missed this goal, no doubt still traumatised by getting destroyed by Jack Payne last week. Harry Mackay, no better, missed this banana, and then the Western Bulldogs were able to capitalise on Carlton's inaccuracy and they scored a goal of their own to get it back to 2 points. And then Treloar ended up putting them in front by about 4 points, 5 seconds to go in the second quarter. Half-time, 18-14 in favour of the Bulldogs. Cracking contest so far. Charlie Curnow still haunted by Jack Payne, having Vietnam flashbacks mid-set shot, but finally found some accuracy with this beautiful set snap kick, and then Mackay finds some accuracy as well to put the Blues in front. Walsh runs into an open goal, gives the Blues some breathing room, and then after the 3/4 time siren, Charlie Curnow finally overcomes the Payne train to put the Carlton Blues up by 16 points. But the Bulldogs responded almost immediately and got the margin back to 10 points. Another quick goal, Aaron Norton set shot, bangs it right through. All of a sudden, a bit of worry for the Blues, but just when they were in trouble, their defense really stood up with some big intercept marks. 30 seconds to go, you'd think it was game over, but no. All of a sudden, the ball sails over the heads of all the Carlton midfield. Another big intercept mark. 16 seconds to go, you'd think it was all over. No hope at all. But all of a sudden, Treloar comes out of nowhere to give the Bulldogs some hope. Bontempelli inside 50. 5 seconds to go. Doesn't take the shot himself. He goes to lob. Marks it just as the siren goes. And now, after the siren, Rory Lobb goes for a snap kick even though he can't play on. He does it anyway, and he misses. He misses after the siren, and the Blues hang on by 3 points. Bulldogs are devastated. Carlton supporters are elated. Cracking contest. And because of that, I'm going to trust this official and comprehensive simulation, and I'm going to back the Carlton Blues by 3 points this Saturday. After that, we've got Sunday afternoon at Adelaide Oval, the Adelaide Crows taking on St Kilda. Now, St Kilda were subject to one of the most atrocious games of football I've ever seen in my entire life. It was pretty bad. I feel bad for people who had to pay money for that shit. That was horrible. Meanwhile, Adelaide, they had a great game against Geelong. They gave themselves a look, but they couldn't get the job done. And I think they'll carry that form over to their game against St Kilda. It's at Adelaide Oval, their home ground. Stars are aligning for the Adelaide Crom, and I think they'll get up by about 15 points. Finally, Sunday Ava at the MCG, we've got Collingwood taking on the Giants. Now, I feel bad because 99% of people on the website reckon Collingwood's going to get up. And I agree. I think Collingwood They looked good against Sydney last week, and GWS have shown signs of some good footy, but they lost against the Bulldogs last week. I'm not sure if Toby Green's going to be back or not. If he doesn't come back, that's going to be a big loss, and I think Collingwood, despite their issues with tall players at the moment, I think they'll get up by about 20 to 30 points. And there you have it. Will I get another 9 out of 9? Do you think I'm a retard for tipping these teams? Who did you tip this round? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure to check out the channel membership option as well for some sexy perks. Big shout out to Sharks Ray and Big Mac John, our absolute legend tiers. I greatly appreciate your support. Thank you for watching. Good luck with tipping this week, and I'll see you tomorrow for the Essential Round review.